along with bimodal outbreak, bimodal setup with the potential for a tornado outbreak as well. So one of the things we're going to go ahead and look at real quick is the surface-based temperatures, and the HRRR has uptrended quite significantly. It's also in agreement with the NAM forecast model. I do think of right around the southeast quadrant of that surface low, I do think we will see thermodynamics substantially increase. I think we'll see some peaks of sunshine, especially from the Hannibal, Missouri area over to the Galesburg, Illinois area as well. We should see probably a little bit more forcing in that area. We should probably see some more destabilization rates where we're going to have temperature profiles between 75 and 80 across parts of Iowa and northeastern Missouri and southwestern Illinois. One of the things we're going to go ahead and look at, this has been on a lot of people's minds, the dew point profiles. Now, the dew point profiles I was not concerned with from the get-go. And with that being said, because we're already having a lot of northerly advection with the dew point profiles from the Gulf of Mexico. And the Gulf of Mexico right now is very warm, and we have a trough through there, and it's bringing up substantial amounts of very warm, moist air. So that's going to act as an enhancement and whatnot. So this is Friday morning. Friday later morning, and dew point profiles are already in the 59 to 63 range. That's plenty enough dew point profiles to have in place across that area to the southeast quadrant of that low pressure and to the east of that low pressure system as it's making its way across northwestern Iowa. And what happens is when we have our low-level jets start to kick in, we actually see a couple of pockets of enhanced dew point profiles, and there's some fruit fly in here. And so, with that being said, also across parts of southeast Missouri, there's two MOSAs bi-model setup. The triple point up in Iowa and northern Illinois, and parts of southeast Missouri and southern Illinois. There's two parts to this. And that's what has this elongated warm sector. It's a very broad area of concern and has a lot of potential. So one of the other things we're going to go ahead and look at is the surface-based CAPE instability per kilojoules. And we're seeing some very good surface-based CAPE values being predicted by the HRRR forecast model as well as the NAM forecast model as well. A broad area of pooling around that southeast quadrant, eastern quadrant, that low. And that is very significant. You're looking at CAPE values between 2100 and 2500. And then as we get that low level jet start to kick in and crank up, we're pulling in and squeezing all that instability out, all that moisture, and we're starting to get closer to that 3000, 2800 CAPE kilojoule numbers, and that's very significant. Now, across parts of southeast Missouri, we're going to have frontal pooling across. Right out ahead of that, we're going to have frontal pooling out ahead of that draped cold front with potential for semi-discrete supercells. And when I say semi-discrete supercells, when you're talking about tornado potential, you want these to be more semi-discrete to discrete. And with that being said, I think that eventually across parts of southeast Missouri and southern Illinois, on the onset, once these start going, they will be semi-discrete, and then eventually it will try to conform into a quasi-linear convective system, a solid line. So that has me a bit concerned. So one of the other things we're going to go ahead and look at is the supercell composite index, and this is basically saying we have the parameters in place at the surface and low levels, mid levels of the atmosphere supportive for supercellular development. It doesn't mean that you're going to get a storm in that area. It just means that if a storm does occur, it has those ingredients to work with. So, and very significant surface supercell composite ratings with this. And now you'll notice that the supercell composite is actually a bit more aggressive to the south. That's because we have better thermodynamics in that area, and but less shear. Now that to some meteorologically, that can actually help produce and keep those tornadoes going a little bit longer. If you have too much violent shear on those supercells and the super fast paced movement of those supercells across parts of Iowa, you can actually have too much shear, and it can tend to cause problems with growth. Sometimes, not all the time. It's a very situational, conditional scenario, but it's a scenario. That's what we're going over. We're going over scenarios. So in this general area, we're looking at supercell composite ratings between 20 and 30 almost in that area. That's very significant. Across parts of southeast Missouri, we're also looking at almost those same values, and that's very significant. Um, One of the things we're going to go ahead and look at is this is the significant tornado parameters. This is the parameters that are available to support potential significant tornadoes, to potentially support tornadoes. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and fast forward here. And once again, you have better thermodynamics, kinematics in the bimodal setup. So the south section of this setup, you already have those parameters in place. They've been in place. You've been having destabilization rates already in place because the warm front had lifted up through that area, and at this time it's right here. So right now I'm still going to be targeting Iowa, but Thursday night, if I still see these forecast models and whatnot, they're still showing me the same picture for across southeast Missouri, southern Illinois, western Kentucky, northwest Tennessee. I will probably change my course over to that area. Um, but right now I'm going to be setting up in Macomb, Iowa. Macomb, Iowa, that is just to the west of Iowa City. And these significant tornado parameters are definitely there. And one of the things to note is that at about 2, 3, 4 o'clock, those parameters really start to become aggravated and accelerate. And some very substantial tornado parameters up across parts of northern Illinois and parts of eastern Iowa, and very significant tornado parameters across this area as well, and also across parts of southern Illinois, including from Springfield, Illinois, south to Mount Vernon, Illinois, down to Carbondale, Anna, Illinois, Paducah, Kentucky, over to Cape Girardeau, Missouri, Perryville, Stoddard County, Butler County, Wayne counties, up to St. Louis County, and that general area. That's a secondary enhanced tornado producing potential area right there. The first area of more concern is across that surface low, deepening surface low across parts of Iowa. And eastern and southeast quadrant of that surface low looks very significant. And these tornadoes up on the surface low, if we get any tornadoes, if we can get some tornadoes during the day Friday off the southeast and east side of that surface low, these are going to be moving very fast, between 60 and 70 miles per hour. Um, Now, the supercells down across parts of central, southern Illinois, and southeast Missouri, those will actually be moving at between 45 and 55 miles per hour, significantly less because we have less low-level shear, mid-level shear down in that area. But with that being said, storm motions will still be very fast. One of the other things we're going to look at here is the updraft helicity. Now, this is a product um, of the HRRR, and this is depicting the potential for rotating updrafts, so rotating supercells. And thing with this has me a bit concerned a bit concerning with this is that um, the potential, it's been very consistent. It's been very consistent. Model to model run has been consistent. The NAM is cold bias, but the NAM is actually more aggressive with these rotating supercells than the HRRRs. The HRRR is still aggressive with these, but that tells me that the models are in agreement with each other, and that is consistency. You look for consistency in the forecasting models. You look for a bunch of different things in the forecasting models to kind of figure out where you want to be and figure out where those two zones are going to be. The what's going to be more potent. Um, and With that being said, at least with this run, and it's going to change, but with this run, very significant updraft helicity values being projected across parts of eastern Iowa, northeastern Iowa, and southeastern Iowa, northwestern Illinois, northwest Illinois, up in this general area through here, and then from the down across the up the secondary area of tornado potentials across parts of southeast Missouri, and that's if we can remain semi-discrete mode supercells in that area during the day. And this has been more consistent down here run to run than it has up here. That's because we have more moving parts. There's more dynamics in place up further north by that low pressure system. So that's why we see some discrepancies and adjustments being made with that. We'll continue to see discrepancies and adjustments being made with that. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means that there's a bunch of moving parts when data gets fed into the system. It has to adjust, 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 adjust. Then when we have less of a dynamic environment, even a slightly less dynamic environment allows for better honing. So we're going to go ahead and look at the reflectivity, and this is what I'm talking about. This is what the radar could potentially look like based off the HRRR. And so this is about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock Friday, and we already have ongoing storms down here across parts of northwestern Arkansas, northern Arkansas, south central Missouri, and extreme southeast Missouri. And we already have a few storms going up across parts of eastern and central Iowa at that time. Now, at this time, with the HRRR, our forcing is still out here just a bit. I do think that's delayed, though. I think it's delayed. I think we may see a little bit earlier initiation. Um, See what I'm talking about? So now we'll stop it here. This is about 2 o'clock. And these are supercells up here across Iowa. We have one, two, three, four, according to this particular run. So these would be supercells across parts of Iowa. Macomb, follow my mouse, my cursor here. Macomb, Iowa is right here. That's where Macomb, Iowa is. Iowa City's right over here. And then as we go back down to the south across parts of Missouri, um, you can see what I'm talking about here. We have supercell, 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 and supercell, and they're semi-discrete. Now, these will be what I like to call hybrids, and hybrids are HP to LP. means high precipitation base, LP is low precipitation base. And what that is that when you have semi-discrete supercells, you can have what's called convergence, where you have a supercell that's been dominant for quite some time and it ingests through the inflow notch on that. It will ingest another storm to the south, and that creates a bit of a messy view of the potential tornado. I call it a hybrid setup when you get that going on because you have two things going on at once in that environment. And but up here across Iowa, we're looking at more LP. We're looking at LP for a few hours. Um, Low precipitation base, that means clear. We can see what's going on to a certain extent. If you're on the right, if you're orientated right with the supercell, the actual tornadic supercell. So one of the things to notate with this is that with this particular run is that with this cluster, we actually will have LP supercells across parts of Iowa on Friday between 1 and 4 o'clock, possibly sooner, a little bit sooner than that. Depending on the ejection and the speed and whatnot. But I do think eventually we will see it conform into a cluster. I think we'll see a cluster develop, and then some renegade supercells uh, to the east and northeast out ahead of that cluster. Um, and and then we're going to go over that here in just a second. What we see here, renegade supercells out ahead of that cluster with a tailing on the south side of that initiating point there, and and then I think eventually it will become more congealed into a larger cluster with semi-discrete supercells still ongoing. And then there's a third area of interest that I'm concerned with, and that would be south of Rochelle, Illinois, Galesburg, Illinois, slightly north of Peoria, Illinois, and that is because ahead of that cluster with that training, with that tailing end on there, I think the potential to see some renegade supercells in this general area does definitely have the potential. We do see the potential for some renegade supercells as well. And this is about 3 o'clock, and I do think 3, 4 o'clock. And down here across, we're going to go ahead and pan down here now. So across parts of southeast Missouri, um, at that time, I think what we're going to be looking at is most of this will be trying to conform into a line, with some still remaining semi-discrete. And at that time, and at that time, our low-level jet really starts to kick in. And I think what might happen is across parts of southeast Missouri and southern Illinois, we might start to see some separation between those supercells, um, become a little bit more semi-discrete again. And that's the way it's looking like right now. And I think that if that does verify, then we could have a elevated tornado potential um, increase at a certain time between 4 and 5 o'clock. So with with our third area right through here being some renegade supercells potentially with our cluster ejecting off to the initial first development of our cluster ejecting off to the east northeast across Wisconsin, western Wisconsin, southwestern Wisconsin um, at that point. And so a very dynamic system, a lot to go over. And if if my partner if my partner wasn't scared of storms, I would say, go take your Equinox over to southeast Missouri. You stay there, and I'll go up to Iowa. You know, kill two birds with one stone. I said, hey, I told him, I'm like, I'll pay for your gas, and I'll give you like $100 for food, and whatnot. Just go to southeast Missouri and stay there while I go up to Iowa in case in case it you know th there's a scenario that could happen, and the scenario is we could have development, very robust, very organized development down to the south across parts of northern Arkansas and south central Missouri, and that could potentially cut some of that flow off. And that's a scenario. It's a very unlikely scenario, but it's a scenario. So um, I'm keeping that in mind. It's definitely needs to be kept in mind. It's a scenario and it's a plausible scenario. So with that being said, if I had another me, I would send him to southeast Missouri and then I would go up to Iowa, but I don't. So anyway, so I'm going to be leaving Thursday. I'm going to be leaving Friday morning at about 5 a.m. 6 hour drive, not too bad, up to Iowa, Macomb. And then we'll do live streaming. Will start at about 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. Friday. And then continue on until probably about 6, 7 o'clock, and then be heading back. So keep that in mind. Have a way to receive warning products, cell phone, weather radio, whatnot. This is a very potential robust severe weather outbreak. It has the potential to produce tornadoes in multiple states and has the potential to cause some problems. So, y'all have a great night. Thank you for joining. Please share